today. Future CPUs and GPUs are set to be more expensive with this, the Nvidia GPU we've all been waiting for. First benchmarks on this upcoming Nvidia GPU, and the RTX 4080 is seeing more price cuts. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. First up for today, there's a huge problem with upcoming chips. I'm talking CPUs and GPUs. Specifically, they're set to get even more expensive. In a new report by Tom's Hardware, they go over some new information on TSMC's upcoming 3nm node. Earlier this year, TSMC mentioned that the logic density from N5 to N3 will be 1.6 to 1.7 times. That's not bad. The problem is that they didn't tell us that the bit cell size of SRAM only got 5% smaller on the N3 node and effectively stayed the same on N3E. For those who don't know, SRAM makes up a chip's cache, like L2 and L3. Unfortunately, as processors get faster, they're needing more and more cache. But to mitigate costs of newer nodes, chip makers rely on having more density so everything can fit in a smaller area. But with SRAM remaining the same size, it could be a serious issue. And Intel's upcoming Intel 4 process doesn't look much better. So it seems that SRAM scaling is getting really tough at these smaller nodes. Luckily, there are some ways to get around this, like using multi-chip modules and other process nodes for SRAM, similar to what AMD does. The issue is that eventually they will likely need to move down in node size there as well. Basically, future GPUs and CPUs could soon see a serious price increase. Hopefully chip makers find more ways around it, but for now, it's not looking good. Next up for today, it looks like we have a leak on the upcoming GPU way more people have been waiting for than say the 4080 or 4090. But first, Micro Center is having their holiday savings event, which means even better deals on your PC hardware. Don't forget that Micro Center already has some of the best prices in the industry, so more off that is just icing on the cake. And they've sponsored today's video so I can give you even more money off. But before I get to that, if you haven't heard of Micro Center, you're seriously missing out, because they're actual physical stores with everything you could ever want for a PC build. It's where I got the parts for my first ever build. I'm talking they have tons of GPUs, CPUs, motherboards, cases, and even custom water cooling. You seriously can't go wrong with Micro Center. And above their holiday sales event, they're also offering first-time customers $25 off any CPU, whether it's AMD or Intel. All you have to do is fill out this coupon and visit your nearest Micro Center for $25 off. To get that or any of their other savings, check out the links in the description below. Okay, back to the story. In a new tweet by known leaker Copite7 Kimmy, he shared some specs on the upcoming RTX 4060 Ti, the far more mainstream next-gen Nvidia GPU. Starting things off, he claims that the GPU has a very short reference board, so it should be quite a bit smaller than the boards we've seen so far, potentially a great fit for smaller ITX builds. The card would be built using Nvidia's 8106 GPU, and it apparently comes with 4,352 CUDA cores, and that's obviously quite a bit fewer than the recently leaked RTX 4070, which had 5,888 cores. One interesting part is that it apparently still comes with the 16-pin connector that the higher-end cards use, yet it only has a TDP of 220 watts. I'm assuming Nvidia is just trying to make that the new standard connector no matter the GPU, but let's just say the 4060 Ti won't be starved for power, given you have a capable PSU. Next up, according to this, the card comes with 32 megabytes of L2 cache and 8 gigabytes of 18 gigabit per second GDDR6 memory. And yes, that's GDDR6, not GDDR6X, so certainly a downgrade in memory speed, though of course the 4060 Ti likely doesn't need all of that. Overall, the 4060 Ti looks like a very capable card. Hopefully the price will actually be what we expect out of a mid-range GPU, and not hundreds of dollars more. Next up, we have the first benchmarks for Nvidia's RTX 4070 Ti. Remember that everything points to the 4070 Ti being a rebranded 12GB RTX 4080. In fact, there was a recent leak on an upcoming PNY 4070 Ti, and as you can see, the specs are identical to Nvidia's 12GB 4080. I'm talking the same 7,680 CUDA cores, 12GB of VRAM, same exact base and boost frequencies, etc. So Nvidia's 4070 Ti is almost definitely their 12GB 4080. Either way, as you can see, the upcoming card was tested in Geekbench through quite a few OpenCL benchmarks, with the average score being 214,654. And when we compare that to other GPUs, we can see that it's just under the 3090 Ti and around 19% slower than the 16GB 4080. When compared to AMD, it's actually faster than their 7900 XTX. Of course, AMD typically doesn't do all that well in OpenCL, they're much better in Vulkan, so it doesn't mean the 4070 Ti will necessarily be faster than AMD's new flagship or anything like that, though some games it may be. Either way, the main question will ultimately boil down to price. If they do in fact keep it priced the same as the 12GB 4080, I really think Nvidia could have a big problem on their hands. Then again, it'll likely depend on how well it stacks up against the 7900 XT. Time, as always, will tell. And lastly for today, Nvidia's RTX 4080 has dropped in price yet again. Recently, I reported on price cuts in the UK that saw the card dip below MSRP. Well, according to the French site Cal Kotlin, the price drops are not done. In the report, you can actually get a Gainward 4080 Phantom for €1,349. Of course, that may not sound like a price cut to those in the US, but remember that the original MSRP in Europe was €1,469, so this is actually €120 cheaper than that. Not only that, but the newly released 4080 Gaming Pro from Palette is the same amount off in Germany. As for why, it may be the exchange rate between the US dollar and euro has been going down for a little while now, rather than say poor sales, especially given Newegg is showing that the 4080 has taken the top spot in their best sellers list. More specifically, the Gigabyte Gaming OC RTX 4080 is number 1, so these price cuts may very well just be the exchange rate. But of course, if they were getting tons of demand, they wouldn't lower the price regardless, so any price drop is still great. Hopefully price cuts will eventually make their way to the US. Fingers crossed. So while that does it for today, are you more excited about upcoming mid-range cards versus these 4090s and 4080s and things like that? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to save money at Micro Center by visiting the links in the description below. And as always, have a great day.